You did not even send me airborne anyway. Why in the world I'm around, it's hard to say. You did not even send me airborne anyway. Why in the world I'm around, it's hard to say.
Hello, everybody. Thank you again for joining us for reading fan fiction with Teddy and Peter. As always, this is me, Teddy, speaking.
I'm here too.
Here's Peter. And, the title is Reading Fan Fiction with Teddy and Peter, but it seems like this week we're going to have to change the title a little bit because we have a special guest joining us. It is none other. We are so excited to welcome Carl Deakins onto the podcast. Hello, Carl.
Hello, Teddy and Peter.
How's it going?
I went to school with you too.
Yeah.
And
That's an interesting pattern among the guests.
I wonder why that is.
It's almost like those are the people who we know and who will come on this podcast. We've contacted Obama. If he had just went to Bates during the time that we did.
Well, we could
maybe he would have come on the pod.
Obama.
Maybe we can get some academic who thinks themselves like special, like maybe Slavoj Žižek. I mean, I don't particularly like him, but I just feel like
you get Žižek, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like he's like definitely. Oh,
it's worth an email.
Oh yeah. I got an email from someone who's related to
Žižek.
Oh,
no.
He
Another
wants
professor who I vibe with. Anyway,
okay.
I'll do that later. Okay. Next, So
this has been a long time coming because I remember the first episode we ever shared on the internet. You commented and you said, "Can I please be on?" It was the first recognition that I knew anyone had seen it.
It might be the only comment we've ever done.
Yeah, it's really to date. It's unless we reach out and ask people that, it's the only time someone has just without provocation
called,
recognized that this exists.
I mean, I'll just say, like, beyond like my interests overlapping, I do think, and I mean, I didn't know Ted super well in college. I mean, you were always like Peter and I know each other decently well. We like wrote thesis together, and
we're adjacent
to
each
like,
other.
Yeah,
we were always like, I don't know, threes are big and stuff.
He was kind of like Ted was kind of like my groupie.
Yeah,
and you could say, like he was in my entourage, you know.
But yeah, so I've known you, but also like podcasting about like random like literature is definitely like my vibe.
Nice.
And
that's an important thing, is that we do think of it as literature. I feel like we've had guests on that don't, but you're definitely somebody who thinks of it in the same category as I think we think about it.
I mean, I read like a bunch of like bad, like I wouldn't say it's bad, but I read like a bunch of like sci-fi short stories on the internet for funsies, and then I also just read a bunch of novels. Funsies. So, like, this is like my vibe. I also have a bunch of friends who write fan fiction.
Oh.
And I studied English in college. With these two goobs.
Yeah,
we had some rousing discussions.
It was kind of epic, actually.
Epic.
I mean, I think I got canceled in like describing my Bates class, like my participation in like Bates classes, in like Bates English classes, was often me getting like canceled.
And then coming back like
the most dangerous thinker at Bates.
I mean, it's like, I don't know. I was like, I don't know about this, and then it's like,
how can you not?
I was like, I got canceled so many times in our methods class, or maybe I'm just projecting. But like, there was like
I think we all got canceled.
I remember getting a little canceled.
I remember canceling methods. So
that's right.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, we did miss some classes. Okay. So should I talk about Bleach?
Yeah. Hit us with Bleach.
Carl, they have brought us a Bleach fanfic, and so me and Peter are unfamiliar with Bleach. So I was wondering if you could serve us up Bleach. It's an anime. If you could give us a bit of a rundown of the show, maybe a little bit how you found the fic.
So Bleach is one. I mean, I just Googled. I went to fanfic.net and Googled the one and found the one that looks like the most intense.
Nice.
So
Perfect.
Bleach is like one of what's called the big three animes. So it's Naruto, One Piece, and Bleach. And so these were like three animes that for like a course of like 10 years had the highest grossing numbers. And they're also like the ones that have the most sort of USA like people from USA like consume them. But Bleach was always sort of like the weird third one, even though it was like a mega popularized like serialized anime.
Yeah.
And that's partially because like I don't know, you don't need to go into anime Naruto and One Piece, but like they're very similar styles to Bleach, but Bleach is like a little more mature, at least in theory, than Naruto was. So like the subject matter of Bleach is that like basically there's sort of like it's like basically if like there was a system for death where people like there's a sort of like separate society who hunts the bad spirits and they're like samurais.
Okay.
And then it's sort of like if you're familiar with anime, it's called a shonen, which is like the most like it's like what Americans, whatever that means, like watch the most.
Right.
And it's
I believe shonen are specifically for like young adult boys, like for adolescent boys. At least for manga.
I think you're right, and I also think it's one that's like very like like it's like I don't know if you want to go too into like Japan's like political economic history, but in like the like after their economy crashed, they started like basically rebranding themselves in like the world on the world stage. So they like had their Ministry of Culture send like anime out. So that's like kind of where Naruto, One Piece, and Bleach come from. They're like the first like, and so like they sort of had like a toning down of things that were understood as more Japanese, but like a rebranding of Japan. So it's very interesting. But like Bleach is like the third weird sibling, like the kind of like edgy one where because it's about like people dying. I watched when I was like 12 or like 13 probably. I had watched a bit of Naruto, didn't really like it. And this was like sort of after my father passed away a couple of years before this. And I was like I was like, dead people hunted, like dealing with dead spirits, like anime, like sign me up. And so I like just binge watched it on Hulu. So it's like other than parts of One Piece, I think it's like the first anime I watched like a fuck ton of. And the plot line is like a normal kid who may not be that normal becomes.
Ain't that how it goes?
It like ends up in an accident becoming a sort of superpowered spirit person who hunts the bad spirits.
And is a samurai.
Yeah, it's like a samurai.
Nice.
And the first like 20 episodes, which is probably like so we're reading a story that I think is basically just retelling the entire series how the author wanted it. But like the first like 20 episodes are sort of like a monster of the week. And then after that, the sort of series that like this is often how they develop, it develops into like a political thriller where like different samurai live in like different like clans in what's basically heaven, but if heaven were a dystopia of samurai with
maybe it
superpowers.
is though.
So and also the other things to note about this series is that all of the villains have like their powers they speak are in like Spanish.
Whoa.
And then like for a period, like all of the villains, like the final set of villains, all of their like powers and names are in German.
Okay. I like that.
And so
Multilingual.
So like you can identify what type of power. So they're like basically there are like humans, Quincy, Shinigami, and Hollows, and those are like the four. And so humans are just humans. Quincy are like sort of like holy war zealots with bows who hate the Shinigami, and the Shinigami is what the like the samurai culture that the main character becomes. Right. And then the third one are like the Hollows, which are sort of the souls who have been corrupted and need to be put to rest by the Shinigami or the Quincy. But the Shinigami don't like the Quincy because the Quincy don't actually put them to rest. They just kill them. Like they just kill the spirits. So there's like some philosophical stuff going on.
Sure.
Oh, yeah, I see you, Bleach.
Yeah.
Now is so this fic is called Ichigo Awakens by Telok. And so is Ichigo the main character?
Yeah, Ichigo is the main character, and he's got orange hair.
Tight. Does Telok mean anything in Bleach, or is that just
not that I know of?
I actually when I went to Boston the other day to look for an apartment, I ate at a Mexican restaurant called Telok.
Oh.
It's like I think it was supposed to be like a fake Aztec word, or maybe a real Aztec word. I don't know.
Or maybe a nod to Bleach.
Or maybe a nod to Bleach. Yeah. They had like a really good like pork sandwich.
Yeah. So everyone go check out Telok
in Medford.
In Medford. So yeah, this fic. The description, this is on fanfiction.net. It says a single spark can ignite the greatest change. When the two parts of his soul acted together and saved his mother, Ichigo's life was changed forever. He was then trained for war or destiny. Stronger characters, all powers, Ichigo harem, manga spoilers. I do not own
harem. Okay.
So this might be a little inappropriate, so I don't really know where it's going.
We crossed that line a while ago, I think.
Yeah, I saw your last episode, so I did see it, but I like read the title.
Right. That's you just need to read the title, honestly. For most of these, you probably just need to read the title, but
yeah, and you understand about 3/4 of it.
Yeah.
So the author helpfully reminds us that Telok does not own Bleach. If I did, Ishin wouldn't have kept stuff from Ichigo.
Ishin
yeah, Carl, what does that mean?
Ichigo's father, and turns out he's actually a Shinigami and wasn't a normal human. And you find that out like right before they fight the like final boss of the first major arc.
So this guy basically, his like the way that he would change Bleach is he'd just make it less interesting. Like he just wouldn't have.
Everyone would be honest with each other. No conflict.
So basically, rather than it seems questionable.
So it's read fiction T, adventure drama. There's 102 chapters.
My God.
About the big thing is that like main character's mom dying is like a central piece of the drama, and like why he thinks he's good with spirits. But it's actually just because his dad is actually just a Shinigami.
So this is a pretty popular fic. It was begun in April 16, 2016. It was last updated July 17th of this month. So 4 years strong.
Wow.
2,434 reviews.
10 days ago.
4,303 faves. So this is. People are following and commenting on this actively for the past 4 years, it seems. What a crazy 4 years it's been. So due to the length, we're gonna read prologue part 1. The prologue has 3 parts. And I think it's funny. I was scrolling through it. The third prologue piece is called Prologue Finale, which is pretty funny. But yeah, we'll just get right into this prologue. So prologue part 1 is called When He Awakened. It felt like any other day. The heavy rain still persisted.
I mean, by the way, sorry, I know this
it's
is
okay.
a bad place to, cut in, but when he awakened is just when he awoke. Like that's not how you say that. It's just when he woke up.
Well, I think it has to, I might be wrong, but this might have to do when his like powers awakened.
Right. I mean, I guess I'm just saying like he's using the perfect. He should be using the imperfect.
Yeah.
Whatever. Sorry, Dad.
Okay. It felt like any other day. The heavy rain still persisted. It hadn't changed in the past week. There was nothing remarkable, nothing important. Great place to start a story.
Yeah.
Overall, a very forgettable day. One that some would rather forget altogether. Yet the city did not stop. The city would not stop. The streets were consistently busy with the hustle and bustle of people going to and from the various places in the city.
What city is this? Is it like in Japan?
I think it's the story is, and Bleach is set somewhere in Japan. I don't know about the fanfic. I would assume.
Yeah, this could be anywhere.
It's set in my hometown.
The city's like Somerville. Mass.
Yeah.
The sun managed to shine through the thinning clouds, letting the morning rays rouse the people, where busy parents and annoying siblings,
Damn,
like my brother, would pick up the sleepy stragglers from their restful respite from their everyday lives. Many would feel rather dismayed, reflecting the feel of the weather, yet one gentle soul always managed to make everything seem brighter. And then there's kind of like almost like a stage direction where we're taken to the Kurosaki household. Masaki Kurosaki, matriarch, that's who you mentioned earlier, Carl, correct?
Yeah.
Cool. Matriarch of the Kurosaki household and one of the few Quincy alive, was eating breakfast with her, I know what that means, was eating breakfast with her beloved family. Her 9-year-old son, Ichigo, was playing with his younger twin sisters, Karen, and Yuzu, as was the way of children their age.
That's fair.
The
way kids play. Yeah. I've never seen a kid play, but I'm sure they do it.
You know how you hear about that.
Yeah.
Her husband, the former Shinigami captain, Ishin Shiba Kurosaki.
He's just letting everything out, I guess.
Joined in their festivities, making the mood all the more infectious. This is what she always desired. This is what made her content. A peaceful life and a joyous family. But deep down, she was wary of her own son. She will always love her child, but in the far reaches of the back of her mind, she was ever cautious. When he was born, she no longer felt that hollow that infected her years ago. She had her suspicions, but prayed she was wrong.
Yeah, so this is going to be completely different than Bleach. Because it starts like... So I was kind of wrong, but like, this is so bizarre.
How is it different?
So like, basically the beginning of it starts when he's like a teenager, and he's like basically 20 years after she died. So it doesn't seem like she's gonna kick the bucket. And that he like gets his powers in a sort of weird way. So like part of it is that he's actually part hollow. Part of the thing that's really great and bad about Bleach is that the power system is really confusing. Like it's like really simple, but how it influences Ichigo is really confusing, because what you thought was one set of powers was actually hollow powers, but what you actually thought were hollow powers were actually Quincy powers. So they keep doing that same type of twist until like the very, very end.
So it is over, just to clarify. The series is period done.
Well, they're remaking the last arc of the anime because because basically what happened to the manga is it got low budget, and like the guy drawing it just like was overworked and couldn't pay attention. So like what once was like super super like detailed, and like what was like detailed in like lots of backgrounds is just like there's so many just like no completely barren backgrounds for like basically after the first like major twist saga basically. And so like the story of Bleach is that it's like the best anime from like episode 1 to 60, but after that it just like goes continually downhill to the point where they just stop the anime. And they're like, half of the series we're not going to put on anime.
So Telok is really trying to redeem that, you know,
Right.
Yeah,
trying
I
to
mean,
just start over, you know,
Start fresh.
get it.
Start even earlier than the show started.
because I think Bleach has one of the best concepts of any anime, but it's just like so many elements of it are real. Like for a shonen, like I don't think shonens are necessarily going to be like super deep stuff, but it's like execution is just so dwindling. But if you think about it, like it's like really just an interesting idea,
Right.
in my opinion at least. But yeah, okay. Next
Comment a comment if you disagree.
Yeah, comment.
Leave a little bit of a comment.
So there's another kind of stage direction. It says parentheses Ichigo's inner world.
Okay.
So it describes an entire city standing on its side was bathed in a magnificent radiance, which was the utter opposite of the world outside. A middle-aged man in a tattered black overcoat, ever caught in a non-existent wind, was trying to enjoy the beautiful day. But there was something plaguing his mind which he just couldn't push aside, a weird feeling, one that still connected him to the Quincy King. You don't seem to be enjoying this as much as you usually do, spoke a warped voice.
What's happening? What's going
So Ichigo has like a world inside of him.
Oh.
I don't really understand what's going on, to be honest.
Like a mind palace.
Like basically Ichigo has like a spirit world inside of himself that when he's going through like struggles, sometimes he just like ends up in.
I thought he was like happy right now.
Yeah, this is a little confusing. I think this is supposed to be him talking to his sword spirit.
Oh.
So like for the Shinigami to have their powers,
okay,
they have to have a personal relationship with the spirit of their sword, which is supposed to be specially made for them. Because all of their swords have special powers. But some of the swords like don't really like the person.
I feel like Ted's sword spirit sometimes. So I think I understand that.
But I think this is supposed to be the guy who Ichigo thought was his sword spirit, but was actually like a undercover plant that was like the Quincy Lord.
Okay.
Very involved for a 9-year-old.
Yeah.
I mean, I know. I mean, in this story, I know it's not.
But this old man is like supposed to be like the spirit of the Quincy King who like sabotaged Ichigo. I think. I'm not sure though. Like this is a little
right.
Yeah, this is so. You don't seem to be enjoying this as much as you usually do, spoke a warped voice. The man turned to see his lone companion in the empty world, a tall and lean man, white as bleached bones, wearing a mask as black as night, a skull with 2 parallel lines going down the mask, which was fixed in a constant feral grin.
So I think this is Hollow Ichigo. So he has different spirits inside of him.
Okay.
And one of them's the one that's like the Hollow.
Right.
Don't you like these bright sunny days? The pale man teased. Have you grown tired of them, or is there something else, some persistent nagging reason that's making you question your stance? There's nothing to question, the old man said, calm but firm. He is safe. That is all that matters.
It's kind of like Inside Out. You know how like every emotion
it is like that.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
Okay,
for
nice.
now. What about when that changes? The same argument bubbled to the surface once again. Whether to keep their charge innocent and ignorant for as long as they could by restricting his power, or expose his potential and make him prepared for anything. The old man wanted to keep Ichigo out of harm's way. The skull-faced figure wanted Ichigo to prepare, to keep him from fighting or make him the strongest fighter. They had fought over this time and time again. I refuse to allow Ichigo into that world, the elder said. He's too young. And when he's older, what are you going to say? He's too gentle? So weak. Face it, I'm here and that kid will love fighting. The two glared at each other for a time.
Could you imagine if this was like the first scene in an anime? Like this is the first episode of
this is the first scene in a lot of anime.
Yeah, I think this person does it. Advice for this person, constructive feedback.
Okay,
I
yeah.
don't
Yeah.
think they. I think there's a lot of like brain dumping, and there's also not a clear sense of conflict.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
like,
I have no idea what's going on.
Well, it's so, Carl, something we've talked a lot about is because fan fictions often do exist in this weird space in terms of like what their responsibility is to like,
that makes sense.
in terms of
Mhm.
exposition, because they all exist with like exposition already built in. So a lot of these fanfics just start in media res.
I guess like my only like the only thing I think that's different about this one is that it is trying to like reboot the series. You know, like it is like it is supposed to be like a parallel story.
Well, one thing
yeah,
I think about that is like, I think you're right, and then I think there are different considerations you need to give for fan fiction than like standalone things. But I think that within that, you should give a sense of like what's
going on,
what the what the
Yeah.
change in the conflict is going to be.
Mhm.
That's a good
Because
point.
here it's just like there's a new conflict that you don't understand, and like that can drive tension. But and I think confusion could be a good way to drive conflict, but it has to be executed, I think, differently than how this author is executing it, where we as readers are like reminded continually of the fact that there are things we don't understand rather than hinting that there are things we don't understand.
Right.
Well, like I mean, I think a big difference is like you can use confusion as like that in that way if you're like reading a novel or like if you've like bought a piece of literature. But like in this, it's like I just clicked on this link for fanfiction.net and I'm 2 paragraphs in and I have no idea what's going on. And like I get that I've never seen Bleach, but like I feel like there should be at least, you know, as you were saying, there does need to be some sort of clear something clear about what is actually different.
Or what's like the take here?
Yeah.
Because
Why are you writing this?
As someone who's like pretty familiar with Bleach, I'm not sure what the take is, other than that like Ichigo is young and what I'm supposed to know about Bleach has all been changed. Because it seems it's like even the characters' relationships to one another are like seem kind of like different. And like I'm intrigued by that, but I also don't think I would be motivated to figure out how they've changed without more like hand holding.
You're not willing to go at this moment read 420,000 words to figure out the context.
Yeah.
You're not quite.
Well, when you say it like that.
All right.
We'll leave this matter to his mother. The old man sounded like he was trying to convince himself more than his other half. He knew that old tale was a destined prophecy, and today was one of the special dates for that man's return. You really think that bastard will let her live? The pale man said. The elder froze in shock. He didn't think that the
That's a name for like sword. The swords are called Zanpakutos.
Knew the prophecy of the Quincy King's return. He never spoke of it, even blocked it from their connection. So how did he know it? Because we're still technically one being, dumbass. The Hollow is smarter than he gave it credit for.
I can't tell you how many times I've said that sentence.
To me.
Yeah, to you.
Still technically one being, dumbass. I think the thing is like that is actually like the type of thing that would be said in Bleach. And it's like at least in the it's like just like edgy things that like 14-year-olds like.
That's a good question. I mean, you almost said the forbidden word, dub. Did you watch the dub or the sub?
I watched the sub, but
of course.
I read like the things and it's translated to things like dumbass often, and I imagine the dub would be like that.
Yeah.
He should be able to recognize Ichigo's potential, the Quincy half argued. He wouldn't do anything that might harm him. Please, when has he shown any form of kindness or care? The Hollow's hybrid argued. If it isn't a pure Quincy or useful to him, he'll kill it because of that taint. Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry, my mind's in the gutter. I'm sorry. Being the instinct did have its perks. He recognized the threat and would be prepared for it. Unfortunately, he had to share this world with someone less than agreeable and wanted to hide Ichigo away. Enough! But Quincy growled. This isn't for us to decide, he said before disappearing, not wanting to continue this conversation or give himself reason to believe that he might be wrong. The sword spirit was left alone with his thoughts. A part of him was wishing that the Quincy half was right, because if he wasn't, ... today was going to be terrible. Aw.
My thing with this series also is that Ichigo is by far the least interesting character in all of Bleach.
Right.
And like one of other Bleach's big issues is that the main character, I think, is like, I don't like Luffy or Naruto a ton, but like Ichigo is like way too boring.
Right.
And then like Bleach tends to have better characters, like side characters, who are like second tier side characters, which is the issue. Is like Ichigo and his main squad are like kind of forgettable.
Right.
Like,
so you wouldn't necessarily. It's surprising then, because like fan fiction, you'd think would be exactly for that, you know.
Yeah.
So it'd be like, weird to write a fan fiction about like a boring character.
Yeah, I feel like you'd write about like I feel like if I were to write like it retold, I think I would like want to focus on one of the characters who's like more like, because they live in like fucking like a hyper stylized spirit world feudal Japan. Like there's some like interesting characters who arise from that. Like and not like the sort of like grumpy teenager. But I think it might have something to do with like who like selects into watching Bleach.
Yeah, and the
like
fact that this person is definitely a grumpy teenager, the person who's writing this.
So then there's another stage direction. It says, hours later after Ichigo's karate class. The rain became heavy again, and the river banks and aqueducts swelled with the rushing water. The auburn-haired Quincy and her young child were making their way home in the heavy shower. He was such a sweet child ever since his father told him what his name meant.
What?
Oh, sorry. I put the wrong... He was such a sweet child. Ever since his father told him what his name meant, he tried so hard to get stronger, to protect her. He had so much potential, so much power, but he was still just a child. She didn't want him to start training. She didn't want him to end up in that world of struggle and bloodshed, fighting with his life on the line. He was a flashing bright beacon to those empty monsters, the hollows, the ones that would love nothing more than to devour him in all his reishi. What's that?
That's like energy, basically, like spiritual energy.
Right.
It's like the resource that only sometimes shows up as like the magic reason to be like, this person can't hit the person they used to be able to hit.
She
it's
would
like
do
plot armor.
Yeah. Anything to protect her little boy, to keep him away from that horrid place. She felt her son's tiny hand slip out of his grasp. She saw him running toward a girl, a spirit. His was one of the... What? Oh, his was one of the clearest sights ever. He never was able to tell living from the dead. She began to chase him, keep him from getting washed away into the current.
That's such a weird way of saying that. Wait, his sight was one of the clearest?
I am assuming that he can, like, see dead people.
Well, yeah. Right? I guess it's just like a weird way to say that. Why wouldn't you just
see dead people? Real impressive.
I can see dead people. That's when she felt it, a dark, oppressive hunger aimed right at her son. She turned to see a large hollow heading for her son. He was covered in wet brown fur and a large mask with what seemed to be a fishing lure sticking out of his head.
Oh, she needed
to hurry to protect her child. She skated on a flow of reishi to get between the disgusting creature and her son, gathered the energy to generate her spirit bow. Then she was surrounded in a flash of light. She felt her power being ripped out of her, leaving her defenseless. Her only thought, save him.
So this happens in the anime, but
yeah,
it's like a flashback.
Canon.
Oh, okay. Why do girls always have bows in anime?
Well,
why can't they have swords? Oh, okay.
So a lot
Sorry.
of like the women in it do have swords if they're Shinigami.
Oh, okay. Okay. Progressive. I like that.
Progressive, we could get behind that.
Yeah. Okay. Girl boss. A little bit of a girl boss. Okay. Was Bleach written by Tina Fey? Because this character sounds like a bossy pants.
What are you saying?
Okay. Let's
That was the
just keep
name of her
going.
memoir, Bossy Pants.
Yeah, Bossy Pants by Tina Fey.
I mean, to be honest, we don't know a ton about his mother because she just like dies before the show starts, and he only remembers the back of her head basically in flashbacks.
So she could be a Bossy Pants. There's room for that.
I think she's like pretty stereotypically not talking and loves her son.
I really thought you were gonna say a girl boss.
If I can remember like the flashbacks that happened in the manga that never happened in the show of the last arc that I kind of forgot. What the part where you discover she's a Quincy and you're like, what?
So that's not even so like you start the show and you don't even know most
of what
is going on right now. Okay.
The show starts like 20 years after this, and Ichigo doesn't know like what Shinigami are, and he just gets like stabbed by a Shinigami to help save her life because a monster's about to eat his like sister basically.
I mean, I've been there too. So.
And so she's like, "Take my powers."
Okay. So we're back into Ichigo's inner world. That bastard, the hollow half yelled, somehow knowing this was going to happen. I love that dog. It was like, yeah, somehow. Masaki was made powerless, and in just a scant few seconds will be dead. The Quincy half just stared, damning his own inaction that had led to this. Deep down, he knew the hollow was right. Yuak?
Yeah, that's like the big bad evil Quincy dude.
Would never allow Masaki to live anymore. With her dead, this world would flood. Ichigo would be defenseless. He tried not to care, considering himself only with Ichigo.
Seems like he cares a lot.
Yeah, he's thinking a lot about it. But if this happened, then Ichigo would suffer, most likely for years, blaming himself for this. He was a fool. Protecting Ichigo didn't mean keeping him hidden. He was weak and vulnerable now. Old man, the hollow yelled, it's now or never. Are we just going to let this happen, or are we going to do something? Save his mother and set the boy on the path of bloodshed, or leave him be and let him get consumed by sorrow. The Quincy half of Ichigo knew his decision. He just prayed he wouldn't regret it. Fine, he declared, letting his energy charge. Ichigo will walk a road of battle. The hollow grinned under his mask. Finally, Ichigo will be prepared for what was coming. Then by our name, his power, we shall protect him and his happiness. He charged his own energy. At once they unleashed their combined energy, took control of Ichigo's body, and uttered one word. Everything around Ichigo was consumed in light. Zangetsu! And then
that's the name of the sword.
Got you.
And so and so like in order to have power over your sword, you need to know its name.
Got it.
Makes sense.
And then there are like 2 levels to every sword. There's like Shikai, which is what Zangetsu is, and then there's like a second level which you discover through lots of training.
Okay.
And well, that brings us to the end of the first part of the prologue.
A little bit of a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
I wonder what's gonna happen.
I actually think it's pretty good. I think it's clunky.
Yeah.
I think there are like things that are like indicate to me that this person like doesn't trust the readers, which is like true of most people writing for the first time. They're like, I want you to get the point. And so I'm going to add a lot of like extraneous details that don't really mesh. They're like, there's a lot of times I'm reading this and I think, I'm not sure why I need to know this. Like the whole, like nothing was really happening.
So I would
what's up?
Just real quick. I've jumped ahead to the 102nd chapter, the most recent update, Night of Recovery, and I just want to read the author's note at the end, just to give the impression of how far things have come. So author's note. For those wondering why I don't have Orihime resurrect people, it was confirmed back when Ukora nearly killed Ichigo, that Orihime had trouble healing injuries with lingering Raitsu, and seeing that Quincy used weapons made of Reishi, that means she had plenty of difficulty already. Without remembering there's a time limit for revival. Also, death is a thing, and I don't like cheapening it without having lasting consequences.
Damn.
Whether for good or bad, like the revived now have a better understanding but can't stay with their loved one, or they come back different. As for those who know about Ez death and wondering why she's being chill about the harem, Ichigo kicked her ass so as the stronger being he calls the shots. And the last time she tried to punish another lover of his, she was tamed, putting that mildly. Read Icy Red and Other Awakenings for more details. Then the final paragraph.
I want to know about that taming.
Yeah.
I want to...
New poll. How I finally deal with Tokunada Tsunayashiro. I'm sorry, everybody. For context, Tsunayashiro...
I'm sorry, Japan.
Yeah, is the main villain of the Bleach novel Can't Fear Your Own World. And when he learned Soul Society was built on lies, he decided to be as vile as possible because he could get away with it, being the highest.
As opposed to real society not being built on lies.
He was the reason Tausen sided with Aizen and was behind the Fullbring massacre that made Ginjo a villain, as takes great pleasure in the suffering of others. In Ichigo Awakens, he was finally arrested on orders from Yamamoto, since Soul Society was under martial law, but he still lived, mainly because I didn't know if I wanted to use him for something else. So we can see that in 4 years, the content breadth has expanded, as one would hope.
It's like you know those predictions of chaos theory, where it's just like, it's pure entropy, just like everything falling apart. Nothing is just like, there's nothing in its right place. Everything is completely upside down. That's kind of how I feel after you read that. But
also,
again, I have no idea what's going on.
Characters isn't even from Bleach. I looked this up because I didn't remember her.
Yeah.
But she's from like some Akame Gaha Kill.
Oh, okay. I've never seen that, but I know what that. I know that's. I've heard of that.
She looks like she's heavily, like she's like a badass woman, but she's basically used as fan service. Just like, I'm just guessing that from like the pure amount of titillage or whatever you say, and like the description of she's a badass fighter, but.
I think that's a fair assumption.
But I could be wrong.
2,000 reviews on this, but I think the only one, and most of them more is just without context, is impossible to understand. But I think I'll just read this one from Butterfly Puss, commented twice, "Good chap." And Woodsire 108 said, "When the next chapter?"
I like to think that that first person is talking about like they're English, and she's like, "What a good chap."
Good chap.
Just a nice guy, a good chap.
This looks like Bleach already has power fantasy issues, and just reading some of these comments indicates to me that, like, why didn't you nominate a queen to rule the world of the Hollows? Like, why wasn't that? It's like, this is just like everything wrong with Bleach. It's just like made like absurd. Like, it's just like, oh my god. Like,
well, you just have to come back. And
like, one of the things that's like good about Bleach is like they do have like a decent number of like strong women characters.
Interesting.
In the course of it, more so than like Naruto or One Piece. Mm-hmm. But they do often get like reduced to like the sexual objectification by like either like the token perv or like just like not really being seen as like cool. Like, for example, one of the characters in it who's like an ultra badass, like her like she doesn't use her sword, but like her final form is like turning into a naked lightning cat where she like loses control of her mind.
Wow. Well,
I do feel that is a. Oh, sorry, Ted. What were you gonna say?
I mean, I am interested in at least watching the first episode. All these
I kinda wanna see it
details,
now.
I really want to locate myself in this, which
Yeah.
I mean,
It
high
does seem like
compliment for a fan fiction, and for
like
your description of it, Carl. I have to say, does most of that work.
I've seen some of Naruto, and I've never seen One Piece, but it seems way cooler than either of those two things.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
It's
way you
like,
described it.
I mean, I think I also might do it more justice than it needs. But like, I think like it's also got like a political conspiracy,
Hmm.
which I think is like really well pulled off for, and like part of like, there's so many like, because it's sort of modeled on feudal Japan, there's a lot of like interesting like senses of hierarchy.
Yeah.
So like one of the main entry conflicts is that like the person who gives Ichigo his powers is sort of like a medium ranking person in like the Soul Society, but like giving a human your powers is like a crime. And so her brother, who's all about honor, like abducts her to put her to death. And that's like the start of like the first like, oh shit, like I gotta rescue her.
Yeah.
And that like that's like a really interesting arc, because like this sort of I just think it's like interesting, because I think a lot of the like One Piece and Naruto don't really deal as much, like I think like the concept of Soul Society is like a rejectionist understanding of feudal Japan. Like I wouldn't say it's but it's like more in depth than Naruto's like completely fantastical like village of the hidden leaf.
Well, I think we should read a fan fiction from these core. What was this genre you said? It's
shonen.
Yeah, shonen.
You should see which fan fiction of shonen is better, and then really settle this once and for all.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I mean,
think the bet. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say Zach wanted to do a Naruto one, so we could probably get. I don't know anyone who's ever seen One Piece.
I've seen One Piece. If you need me to watch you,
there you
go. I could be your anime person. If you need like
our anime expert.
I like my problem with my One Piece is like, if you imagine like a contemporary epic, that's kind of what it is, but it's just like really bad. Like after a certain point.
I've heard it's really terrible. Like that's what I've heard about it, is that it's just like remarkably bad.
It's like there are like, you know, it's also like there are like it's like unlike Bleach, where like the concept of Bleach is good, but there's like a failure in execution.
Yeah.
I think like the concept of One Piece is like pretty laughably immature. Like more so than Naruto. But it's like the thing is sort of like hyper inflated with the fact that it has a lot of like compelling side characters, some of whom like join the crew. So I think that like suckers people in. But then you also have to deal with some of the like not as interesting side characters, and Luffy, who's like just like least interesting power design, and like actually just like every like just like really like boring. Like I'm like Naruto without any personal growth.
Well,
which is like the whole point of Naruto.
Like the whole point of Naruto is that he like changes and like, and he's like annoying, but he like changes slowly. Like what, like Luffy just like doesn't change except he gets stronger. He's like I will protect my crew.
That's a character right there.
Like he's just like the most static character.
Right. So I think you know, if you're wondering, the reading fan fiction with Teddy and Peter, thumbs down on One Piece, but thumbs up on Bleach.
Undecided on Naruto.
Well, undecided on Naruto.
the best shonen I think is probably Hunter x Hunter, but I don't know how many
Interesting.
people.
Have you seen Kenshin?
No.
Like Rurouni Kenshin? It's like from like this a similar to like the sort of like first wave. I think it was later than
Oh
Bleach
yeah.
and the other things, but it was a similar time, like the sort of like it played on Toonami and stuff like that. I really like that one. That's probably my favorite
I've
show.
heard Inuyasha is good.
Yeah, Inuyasha apparently is quite good. Although I think Inuyasha is a very similar concept to Bleach. I've also never seen Inuyasha, but I know it's kind of like about, spirits killing spirits or something.
I forgot about Full Metal Alchemist. That one.
Yeah, Full Metal Alchemist too. Yeah, that's also a big one.
I think the anime of that one is worse.
Yeah,
I
probably.
also think the Full Metal Alchemist fan base is really annoying. The thing about Hunter x Hunter,
Oh.
Shots fired.
well, it's like they're the most likely to meme about it.
Yeah.
I don't think they're like, but like, what was it? Oh, Fairy Tail is garbage.
Oh shit.
I like it, but it's garbage. Like that's the thing with shonen, you'll like it because like they have cool, like the drawing of characters is cool,
Yeah.
but like the actual like plot and like show design is so. It's like there's also almost no point to like watch some of them. Hunter x Hunter is, in my opinion, the best because it has the most interest, like the most non-genre generic storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
So like the main characters often lose fights. The story progress is often based on the fact that they lose fights. Actually, it actually doesn't follow one character. It follows 4 characters, and the show transitions from having one of the characters being the main character to having the other characters being the main characters. But the guy who writes it is like really sick and doesn't finish it. It's like this is a problem. Like I think a lot of the people who take creative liberties with their form are like really overworked by the industry.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Like the Mob Psycho 100 guy, who's I think the same person as the One Punch Man guy. Like his whole thing is like making weird anime, and like I think it's also the way that it's commodified in the U.S. is like really hard for like kind of the way that it's set up. Like the business model is just totally different in Japan.
Yeah.
Than like a TV show in the U.S.
They're like expected to write one episode basically every week.
Yeah, which is insane. Like it's so much harder to do that than like writing like a sitcom, which is like, I mean, a sitcom can be just as good, I guess, but like it's just a completely different form. But whatever. Are we? I think that's a good place to wrap it up. After our general discussion of anime period.
But
I'm pretty about this anime. I don't think I'll this fanfic. I don't think I'll finish it.
No, I mean,
me neither.
I think that's a pretty hard ask.
But such a pleasure to have you on, Carl. I think
if you need someone to do more anime with.
I think we'll definitely be having you.
I mean, I have nothing to do until my job starts as a teacher.
There you go.
And I have to self-quarantine next week, so.
Big oof.
All right, peace.
Yeah, thank you for listening. Peace to
Bye.
all. A good
night. Thank you so much.